Our final talk of Lister Week is from one of the trustees of Friends of Glasgow Royal Infirmary, Dr. Morven McElroy. Morven has collaborated with myself and others on projects to celebrate all things GRI through the recent years. Our talk will focus not just on Lister, but on the history and heritage of Glasgow Royal Infirmary and their ongoing projects.
Thanks, John. Having been introduced by one GRI legend, I now get to talk about others. I personally have enjoyed this week immensely. I hope other people who have joined us have enjoyed it too. First of all, I would like to thank Drs. Hilary Wilson and Kate Stevens for organising this. They are absolute legends. However, they did leave me with the task of giving the last talk in our first ever themed week here at Friends of GRI. No pressure on me for rounding things up then. I'm going to start with a slightly humorous take on this. We could say that those of us at Glasgow Royal Infirmary are not that great at keeping Lister's legacy alive in physical form, in that we have a track record of demolishing buildings that are associated with him. After much protestation from around the world, the 3-storey building in the midground of this photograph was demolished in 1927, sadly. Although, and this might make a few people laugh, one positive I can take from this photo is that it clearly demonstrates that parking in the quadrangle was much easier in those days. Here's a photo from a similar angle today. The parking is worse, and there is a mobile scanner, a white kind of lorry, roughly where the Lister ward was, along with another building in the midground. Then, in our wisdom again, about 90 years later, in 2018, we demolished the next Lister building, which was in the middle of the GRI campus too. This housed the Pathology Museum that was originally in the Lister building on the previous slides. For us, though, nicely, this area is now a green space and will be a site potentially of future hospital development. I'm pretty confident that if we got our way to call it the Lister Garden, it would have been built on instantly. But enough about destruction. Third time lucky. Here's hoping that this one lasts longer. Originally built in the 80s, it was refurbished about a decade ago and is a mixture of university accommodation and NHS teams. It's in this very building that the Annan photograph of Lister, which is on display in our current exhibition, is usually kept. It features in our virtual tour, which you can see on our channel. Building on from that, we want to keep all of this amazing history and heritage alive. That is why we started Friends of Glasgow Royal Infirmary. We registered as a charity in 2020 with these aims: the advancement of the heritage, culture and science of Glasgow Royal Infirmary. We were to establish a museum. We want to celebrate the heritage and history of Glasgow Royal Infirmary. It's also for the benefit of the public, our patients and our staff. I also think that it's really important that we also get to have a bit of fun too, which is essential in the current climate. This project and team definitely brighten up my week, although ironically as a group of physicians we are wearing more PPE and surgical attire in this photo than Lister and his contemporaries ever did. With that in mind, let's start to talk about what has been built on that legacy of Lister and others. I'm afraid I won't be able to cover even a hint of it in this short talk. But as part of feeling part of the family, we've been situated in the same place in the historical heart of Glasgow for our 226 plus years. I can look out of my office window and see Provin's Lordship, the oldest house in Glasgow, and out of a lot of the wards you can see Glasgow Cathedral. I think that gives everyone who's part of the GRI family a great sense of their historical roots. I'm now going to focus on 4 aspects of our history and heritage: people, the places, the archives, and what we're going to do next. I'm going to create this through the medium of Twitter posts from the Friends of GRI Twitter feed, as I thought this was a nice link to the past and the present. If people want to follow us to see more tweets, please do, and I'll give you the links at the end. Starting with people. Well, historical greats. There are so many amazing people throughout the 226 years of the GRI being, not just Lister. This first tweet talks about Sir William McEwen, one of my and several other people I know's favourite. He was a student of Lister's and worked with him in the Royal Infirmary and also at the Western Infirmary in Glasgow. Not so many people do that nowadays. He took Lister's work further with aseptic surgery. He will feature in another themed weeks, so watch this space. Connections. Talking about Sir William McEwen brings me to connections. He worked with the world-famous matron Rebecca Strong at Glasgow Royal Infirmary. Her legacy is more than a talk in itself. She revolutionised nurse training. By absolute coincidence, the etching that we chose for our 225 celebration feature wall was by her son-in-law. Embarrassingly, we only realised this after talking to one of her surviving relatives who connected with us following the Herald article a couple of weeks ago. Moving on to GRI families. I'm not just talking about blood relatives, of which there are many, as you can see in this, but there are wider GRI families too, and we continue to connect people and collect information. So if anyone's got anything that they want to send us, please do. And then there's all of the other really important and touching stories. There's many stories to tell, like the painting for ICU. The family featured here are the ICU family. Robert Miller, the artist, gifted it to ICU to commemorate the dedication of staff during this pandemic. Our next slide, we're going to talk about the places. Part of that's the buildings. And the first part of that is our past buildings. I spoke a bit about destruction at the start. Some people think that the building that is around today was the original. It is in fact a relative newcomer, having been built here in the 1900s and 1910s. Although, when they started the demolition of the Adams building, which was there before, it was in a state of disrepair apparently, according to the newspapers of the day. Again, we have a knack of knocking down old buildings in this site. Current buildings. We are tight for space in the current building, which is why it is important that we use space effectively and multi-purposefully. We are one of the oldest buildings in Scotland, the hospital-wise, if not the UK, that accommodates wards in these sort of areas. Looking to the future, we will need to see what happens at the GRI site. With regards to spaces, COVID ensured that we could participate in our first ever Doors Open Day in September, which I think is still available online. This gave the wider public access to spaces in the hospital that we don't usually get access to. We also get to go on our own adventures and wanderings, with the appropriate safety measures taken, of course. I have to get that in there. This brings me to archives. NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde Archives. We are very grateful for all the input from the Health Board Archives. There are extensive GRI archives as part of their collection at the Mitchell. The Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Glasgow. Again, we have good links with the college who allowed the use of their archive photos of Glasgow Royal Infirmary, and I personally can't wait to get back into both the college and the Mitchell archives to explore them more. On site at GRI, there is absolutely nothing like the thrill of undiscovered items. As well as the ward rounds that we've rescued, we found papers on a proposed museum from the early 90s in our area, not too far away from our current proposal. Continually adding. For example, this programme will in itself form part of our future archives. What next? Well, we have ongoing work with a refurbished space, which is going to form a multi-purpose area where we can celebrate all that is Glasgow Royal Infirmary related. We are grateful to Ian from Estates in project managing this for us. Our next theme week is going to be around Glasgow Royal Infirmary women, and I'm looking forward to taking part in that too. Obviously, we're a small team, but we're open to any suggestions for any other GRI themed weeks too. Once lockdown is over, we're hoping to start recording oral histories from a variety of Glasgow Royal Infirmary associated people. We are also constantly adding to our archives and are currently appealing for any GRI COVID related items or anything non-COVID too. Collaborations. As mentioned in a previous slide, we have great links with the college, and they contributed yesterday to Lister Week as part of their bigger Reframing Their Heritage event. The Friends of Glasgow Botanic Gardens have been very helpful with our planting efforts in association with Dr. Hilary Wilson. And also the Scottish Beekeepers Association are working with us around establishing beehives in the GRI campus. Hopefully, moving forwards, we can have many more. And again, if anyone would like to collaborate, please get in touch. Now, coming to my final slide, I would just like to thank all our collaborators this week. We couldn't have done this without you. The author Lindsay Fitzharris, Alistair Tuch from NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde Archives, Ross McGregor at the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Glasgow, also the medical illustration team at NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, and last, but by no means least, our very own GRI surgeons Nigel Jameson and Fiona Leach. So now to finish, here are the ways people can connect with Friends of GRI. We look forward to hearing from you and for you joining us for our next themed week. Look out for dates on the website and on Twitter. Thanks.